All right. Let's see if we're up. Obviously there's a little heat wave in the Northeast, so the converters blew out. They sent the high school home. Electricity went out all over Milburn, so my office is a little messed up. So I'm trying to make sure that we're all hooked up here at 6:32. My name is Scott Redler. I am the Chief Strategic Officer of T3 Live. This is the 6:30 Club. It's September 6th. Looks like we're working. Let me see if I can say hello to some of my crew around the world, because yesterday I couldn't see them live. Let's see, anybody around? Are we able to get in here? Yes, I'm listening to the Jonas Brothers. I think they're pretty damn good. I like them. Hey, we got Neve Shu, Morning Marbella, man. I guess they're from Spain. Yes, the Costa del Sol was great. And my man Marco, who was a member of T3 Live and still is during 2020, all of a sudden was our host, which is cool. What up, Texas? How we doing? Hold on a second. I got to do a little trade right here. Yes, I am a trader by nature and a trader by trade, as well as a technician. Anyway, what up, Massapequa? What up, It's? What up, Austin? What up, Roku in the house? Roku's been acting a little bit better. I hear you. All right, guys, let's get to it. It's all about business. It's all about process. It's all about netting money. It's all about what's your time frame. So, what's up, Hungary? it's around the world there. So I wanted to address something because I thought this was pretty cute. I'm a technician. I call myself a cocktail napkin technician, but I've also been a trader, or I am a trader. For me to make big money, I need to make money every quarter. I get that on top of being the founding partner of T3 and being the Chief Strategic Officer of T3 Live. But I have friends out there that are technicians that don't trade, or strategists that work in different hedge funds or whatever. But Carter is I wouldn't call Carter a friend, but we're we were both on CNBC around the same time in 2008. So I've seen his work. A lot of times we agree, because lots of times technicians agree, because if you're a technician, really we're all looking at the same thing, right? We're all looking at trends. We're looking at moving averages. We're looking at RSI. We're looking at stochastics. We're looking at MACD, all those things. I rarely look at all those things. But again, we look at them, and I saw one of his posts over time. So I just wanted to go over it real quick. So he's talked about how, if you look here at this is the weekly chart of the S&P. And he showed how, which was pretty cute, that on September 6th in 2021, the S&P was at 45.28. So 2 years ago, okay, we were at this spot. So then you fast forward 2 years later, all of a sudden, you're back at the same exact spot. So how do you maneuver that? Okay, it all depends on your time frame, right? If you're a trader, which I'm a trader, I made pretty good money over the past 2 years, even though we're in the same spot. So I listed in Twitter that entries and exits matter, don't they? Right? You're getting in, getting out, using a tier system, netting money, using moving averages, using descending trend lines, ascending trend lines, and you can see a ton of them. And if you look here, I remember this head and shoulders pattern right here that triggered right around 4,300 to get risk off. And that was also below all the moving averages. So on a macro level, you had a left shoulder, a head, a right shoulder, and that was your out. If you trade for a living, that started the active sequence to the downside. So then, if you remember, I drew this. I haven't looked at this weekly chart in a while. You had the left shoulder, the head, the right shoulder, and then we broke above this descending trend line, or you could say this was your neckline, and then this would started another nice active sequence from 4,000 to 4,600. So I could pick apart a lot of micro trends in there, but those were two massive, weekly chart patterns to give you clues on which way to lean if you trade actively for a living, and you could have made a decent amount of money, even though we were in the same spot 2 years later, right? That's our job. If you're trading actively for a living, you get paid monthly, you better know sector rotation, tier system, chart patterns, the whole 9 yards. If you also, which I also do, have a 401k, which is putting in monthly money long term, and I also have a 529 for my son Chase, which some of you guys know, he's a rising freshman. I actually started when I was 5. If you're having kids, start your 529 when they're 1, because college university costs are through the roof and they're gross and disgusting and need to correct. But anyway, if you want to go and be a liberal arts major and spend $300,000 on college, to get away and party, you shouldn't be belly aching about having student debt. Anyway, I danced bar mitzvahs and emceed, and I had no college debt because I went to SUNY Albany, so I grew up in Long Island. But anyway, let's forgive everyone's debt for votes. No, I'm kidding. Anyway, so the moral of that story is, if you put in monthly, if you're like, just say you don't trade actively for a living, and you're like, hey, I'm a doctor, I'm a lawyer, I'm a policeman, I'm a teacher, and you put money in every month, from this spot to this spot, you accumulated the average cost of this entire sequence, where you don't really care what's happening with the market. And chances are, 2 years later or 2 years from today, we're probably going to be above 4,800, and we could be at 5,000 plus, and you are not in the same place you were 2 years ago. You have a beautiful average cost, and you're well on your way to being in the market for hopefully 30 years and getting your average of 7% a year, because historically, that's probably what happens if you stay in the market long term. So my advice to you, if you're 25, 26 and started a job in September, and they say, hey, do you want to maximize your 401k? Do it. Sacrifice a little. If you're 40, do it. Sacrifice. You can always start. I also say whole life insurance is pretty good too. My friend strong-armed me into $1 million whole life policy when I was 35, and it's 15 years later, and there's a good cash value, but whatever. So anyway, then you go to maybe the monthly chart, just to bring it back a little bit more. I haven't looked at this in a while. Remember, these 4 years before we broke out. Then you had another 4 years before you broke out. So chances are, at some point, if you look at this, this is just a big channel right now. Let's take rid of some of this stuff. Let me take a look together. Maybe this is now some kind of bull type flag where you do a little bit more sideways consolidation, and you could see a move here. So just say this is 3491 and this is 4800. We're in a channel. How long does this go? Could be a bunch of time. Remember the decade of pain that everyone's at the 401k system was over, and that was like from 2001 to 2010. Well, at some point we're going to take this out, and and if you have a good accumulation over a long time period, you'll do just fine. So that's just like a little lesson in time frame analysis. It's never a waste of time. Plus, just like in sports, if you're not winning, you're learning. Okay, same thing in the market. If you're not making, you're learning. Hopefully, as long as you look at yourself in the mirror. So let's go back to the daily chart. That was a little red dog lesson. Now let's see here. Okay, overall, if you look at the the daily chart. Okay, we wound up, there's a lot to learn here too. So this was 45.40. We did break a little bit below what's it called, Friday's low. Okay, loose and wide candle. We were extended from the 8 day. So we weren't even really. Everyone's belly aching about the price action. Meanwhile, from the red dog reversal on August 25th, right? Here was your low. Here was your higher low. On this day, that's when I made my macro call that I was putting a tier of my wife's blood in the street account to work for the first time in a while. So that was a pretty damn good call, considering from, I had to do it on the close. The next day you had a trading call, and this was really, your higher low, red dog reversal into 45.40, almost a gap fill. And now what's next? Do we need to test 44.40 to 44.60 prior to making another move or not? The SPYs right now are down a whole 80 cents. There is some news that Chinese employees aren't allowed to use Apple products. Okay, that's kind of, yesterday Apple was down. It absorbed it. We'll see what happens with today. I still think Apple needs some time. But overall, here's the SPYs. Let's see where the SPYs are right now. You have 449.17, right? That's yesterday's low. In order for the market to continue to retrace, because it did get a little overbought, right? Here the oscillator was minus 77, and now we're plus 20. So anyway, if we're going to get to 445, we got to get below and stay below 449.17. We'll see how that goes. For today, right now we're at 448.36, a little bit below. So in order to relieve the pressure, we reclaim this, or we see how we handle this 445 to 443 area with the 8-day right below it. Yesterday the market did seem a little weaker than, and actually no, it was weaker depending on where you live. Like I like to trade tech, and to me, tech actually had some decent action. My biggest position right now is Meta, options and stock, and at this point, you had a nice tight pattern here above the moving averages, and right now Meta is actually showing some relative strength this morning, maybe because Meta doesn't have exposure to China, and China's talking about, whatever, or there's an upgrade. I don't know exactly. I went right into the 630 club. All I know is I have a decent amount, and it's a 301.90, and looks like if it could get above and stay above 301.74, there's a void here. So this looked good yesterday. Finally, Microsoft woke up a little bit, right? Microsoft also, is a position that I have that's down a little bit. I'd probably buy a little bit more. Last week I bought some Microsoft calls in case we want to play catch up. Today I added to the stock once it cleared 332, which I did. It hit 334.81. It's one of my bigger positions also. Microsoft right now is, I think it's down like $1.19. Not a big deal. Hopefully this 332 holds, and I could buy more to go red to green and add cash flow with the tier system around my position. Anyway, we'll see how that goes today. There's some news out there about gatekeeper stocks, which we all know. Microsoft has I'm not going to use the M word, and so does Google and Amazon and all these names that have been getting really big, and they have multiple facets to their business. So, it's not new news. But anyway, I would think this is buyable if, it's not like it's overbought, it's day one. So hopefully it is, and then takes this out, and that would create good cash flow to the day as an active trader. Not talking about what I spoke about before, about midterm, long-term, and all that stuff. Yesterday was kind of interesting because I know, on Friday, Tesla, Tesla, not kidding, and Nvidia were a little weaker, so that had me put some risk down. But from day to day, you could switch things, right? And then all of a sudden, Tesla took off. If Tesla was going to be really weak and this bar would have meant anything, the bounce would have been rejected into this 250 spot. Instead, within the first, 15 minutes, it traded through 250, saying that this doesn't matter. Price action matters. Everybody matters, not just some people. Everybody. Anyway, so it took back 250, and then even took back 255 to negate any of this. If this bar was going to have control, it would have been rejected at 250 and rolled over. Instead, it penetrated right through it to say, hey, this meant nothing. So anyway, today? Tesla is only down 60 cents. You would think that, at some point it goes green, maybe even tries to take out this 258, and then 261's big. Or today it might need to do like an inside candle. Same way today. Does it need to digest above 255-ish or 250-ish to digest this big action to then continue to the upside, right? We'll see. So let me write this in. This is 258. In order to get to 261, what does it have to do? It's got to get through 258 first. Isn't that so sophisticated, right? I'm a very sophisticated, smart trader. I'm kidding. Just here's 258, here's 261. Are you smarter than a fifth grader? In order to get to 261, you got to get above and stay above 258. If it goes above 258, goes to 259, doesn't hold 258 and doesn't stay above it, chances are it's not going to 261. We're very complicated, right? You need to go to Harvard to be a market technician. I'm kidding. Anyway, so we'll see how that goes, but a pushback real fast. So same thing happened here. If you remember, this was the day Nvidia got sold on its good report, came in the next day, engulfed it. This was a choppy day, then pow. So I don't know if today's going to be an inside choppy day or it's going to continue. We shall see. But it's definitely something as an active trader you should watch. All right. Google, I've been in this since last week when I returned from España. The Costa del Sol, it's been acting well. A little digestion above the 8-day. So we'll see how much time it needs before this can get going above 138-ish. And then you have Apple, which is going to be in the news, and everyone's going to talk about it all day. Probably should just be in a void, but watch it for the indices. Yesterday, Apple, reclaimed this 188.28. It's very extended from the 8-day, so it probably needs some time to breathe anyway. you can now lower this a little bit. So whatever this is 187.61. You can't get too bearish on Apple, even though the Chinese employees can't use iPhones unless, breaks below that. And even then, you have the 8-day and 184.74, and we'll see how that goes. So anyway, what I do each morning is I update all the price points on these charts, and then I post them on Red All Access, and I do put a few in the public Twitter sphere, but usually I do 2 or 3 because that's all my partners let me do publicly. But in private, I do 35 to 40. So I try and help the greater good, and then maybe like, oh wow, I made money on 1 or 2 charts. Maybe we want to spend the whole day with the community of T3, which is the Alpha Team and Red All Access. So we'll see what happens here. Oh, AMD. Woo! Remember how strong that was on Friday? I bought a lot of options for AMD, and I was also in the stock. And then how cute, they had to beat up AMD really early, got stopped out of the stock, but thank goodness, I kept my options on, and then all of a sudden the news, the conference happened in AMD or whatever they were doing at 11:50 yesterday. AMD took off, so that helped a lot. So I managed my options with a tier system. So I went from tier 1 into weakness. I went to tier 2 into that. I went back to tier 1, and now I'm going to continue. And then today we'll see if AMD, which is down 64 cents, which isn't a whole hell of a lot, if AMD could go from red to green, right? Hold around 110. This was 110.06, and it's trying to get above this 111.64. So we'll see if you can get above that. That'll be good. So maybe you have 2 buys. Maybe you're massaging the position. Okay, if it stays special. Special to me is something that you could buy. You could add on a dip. You could trade it through a pivot point. You could go. You could sell it, make cash flow, and sit in a position that's not a trap. Lately, this has been horrendous, and now it's just starting to figure out if it can go higher. So we'll see. NVIDIA needs a little bit of time. It's still hanging in here. This was Friday. It was weaker, but yesterday it did reclaim 481 and gave you a trade. Still hanging on to the 8-day. So still, so tech is acting pretty decent in the face of higher rates. Right now, they need to keep rates higher. Inflation seems a little sticky. I don't know how much more they could raise. They might raise another quarter. They've already raised a ton. It seems like it's starting to filter into the economy. And we'll see how the push-pull continues. For now, keep trading, keep netting money, know your time frame, have hopefully multiple time frames. It is September, which you've heard all day long on every TV station. Historically, is not the best month. So there is a chance that the SPYs might want to come in over the next few sessions or so, or not. And look where we were. Look where we were. This was August 25th. This is when this active sequence started back to the upside after it started to the downside in this gap and go to the downside and never got filled. Remember this tight pattern here, and that was, risk off below the 8-day the entire time. And then finally, this is when we reclaimed it. So you want to know what kind of sequence we're in. So you know if you're buying dips, if you're in a lot of cash, if you're trying to keep some risk on, or if you're trying to make some money short. It all depends on what you like to do. So with that said, it's 650 for today. The SPYs right now are down 84 cents. I have a little bit of a SPY short on as a hedge with some of my positions. So I'll cover some and then see if what I could add to go red to green and continue to massage the trade, knowing there is a chance we could still see 445-ish, and then still be, constructive from here to here to maybe to there, or not. Some like, hey, Redler, this is just a lower high. Redler, look at the IWM. What a gross candle, which is true. I'm not in the IWM. This IWM has been in a stupid range for a long time. It's not been an easy place to make money. You know why? Because little companies need to borrow money when rates are rising. Makes it harder for them. So that's why they're going after the mega caps that are cash rich. So you have to put a little bit of a fundamental hat on top of a trading hat. But either which way, this went to the top end of this channel and failed, broke below here, went below the moving averages, had an oversold bounce with the August 25th, and now made a lower high with a pretty nasty candle. So for today, I guess you'll see what happens. What's this, 186.77? Does it do a little bit of a red dog reversal or not? Does it reclaim this spot or not? If it doesn't, you just made a lower high, and then you better make sure that this doesn't break this spot. If it does, then chances are it might be leading at least the small caps lower. Remember in 2022, a lot of the time, all the sectors were under pressure, but they hid in 4 or 5 names. So that's the case. We got to make sure we're in those 4 or 5 names, not the other ones, right? Some guys like, hey, Red Dog, is this a head and shoulders top pattern in the small caps? It could be. It could be. I'm going to watch to see how it plays out, right? You could say that this is kind of like the left shoulder. This would be the head. Here it could be the peak of the right shoulder, right? So we'll see, and this would probably be your neckish line, right around 182-ish. And if that's the case, boom, boom, and then what does it do? Hey, it brings it back to the bottom of the range, which would be this void here. And if that's the case, that means we're in a weaker tape. But again, just looking ahead and figuring it out. We try to look ahead a little bit, but we try and trade in the moment because that's what we do. Anyway, I appreciate you. Thanks for tuning in. Hopefully this worked. I'm trying to get this back on YouTube besides Twitter, because Twitter sometimes doesn't let you watch it live and you have to wait until it's ready and goes. And I know that's a pain in the arse, but it is what it is. I'm not a technology genius here. I'm just an active trader that has a process, and I'm drinking my iced coffee. I'll have my ginger shot later. This is the last it is green drink, and I try and just teach you guys what I'm doing. It's not rocket science. It's just a routine. This morning I was in my sauna, did 250 reps, listened to 2 videos from Pep Talk. Then in my ice barrel, I was thinking about my positions, what to do, how to do it, based on what. Cadence was watching. Then I go upstairs, take a shower, stop and get this, come in, log in, and then talk to you guys. And now I'll do my 30 charts with some music on, because music makes me happy. You got to do what makes you happy. Otherwise, you shouldn't be doing it. Thanks again. Work on your process. It's September. Make progress, not perfection. You don't need to be perfect to make progress. And if you make progress, I think that's a key to a little bit of being happy. Later, guys.